I'm Matt Noah from Gold Derby, here to ask you, Ray, what surprised you most about Kim in this recent season?
Wait, did you just call me Ray Wexler?
Oh, maybe. I'll start again.
I liked it.
Yeah.
It was like melding.
Yeah. Rhea Seehorn plays Kim Wexler in Better Call Saul, and she's been playing the character for 5 seasons. I'm Noah from Gold Derby. What surprised you most about Kim this season, Ray?
It's you could say everything and you could say nothing because they write so brilliantly. Yes, many of the scripts I was like, I do what? And then I'm doing what? Reveals of her past or things that she's doing. But in other ways, as soon as you get into the scripts and you start actually doing the work and the breakdown of the scenes, again, because they are such brilliant writers, it always seems, they don't seem like tricks to have shock value. They seem like things that were always there under the surface the whole time. And my own tracking of Kim from the beginning has felt like it's becoming. Ooh, did I lose you? You went black.
Sorry. Yeah, I forgot to tell you. I should have told you this before we started recording, right? So I turned my camera off when you're answering the questions with this new setup, so that my face doesn't take up half the screen for people.
Oh. I like half a screen with your face.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I feel like the people watching don't. I feel like
You don't think they like to see the interviewer?
No, I don't think so.
Matt, I disagree. I like your mug, but okay, whatever you want to do.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, so should I just continue?
Yeah, just continue. Yeah, what's surprised about Kim?
Okay, so I felt like I've been tracking Kim since the beginning as well, and has felt for increasingly through season 4, and then as soon as we started season 5, that there's just so much she keeps pushing down, and you can't keep a lid on boiling water for that long. It's going to start shaking, and there seems to be this. She's losing a little bit of that control, and it didn't feel entirely like her finding a new person that she never was. And I don't think it's a complete black and white thing of like, are we discovering who Kim always was, or is this who Kim has become? It felt like this combination of a number of things that kept igniting each other, both in her as well as external influences, like Jimmy and stuff. So I felt very surprised, but I felt very rewarded when I actually did the math on them.
Yeah, and like we've seen like maybe Kim this season make a lot of choices, and some of those choices have been things that have maybe been ethically dubious, and others maybe could be argued virtuous choices in terms of the kind of legal work she's looking for. Do you think Kim is on a bad choice road or a good choice road?
Well, the thing is, I think one of the major contributors to Kim sort of losing the control, this unraveling, whether you thought what she was before was right or what she is now is wrong. And I think trying to categorize people that way in this show is a pitfall and is part of the theme of the show, that nothing is black and white like that. But because even her virtuous choices to choose PD work and stuff, even when she's doing those, she has always had this thing where she wants legal and illegal to be the same as right and wrong, and to be the same as moral and immoral. So her fight to get justice for those that she thinks deserves it and punish those who don't is not very virtuous, like to think about things that way. And certainly you shouldn't be practicing law if you're doing it that way. But at the same time, there's this Robin Hood part of her that I find very noble, that she, Mike Ehrmantraut has a lovely speech about, rules among thieves and stuff. And not that she's all the way in that corner, but I feel like it is very, I don't know that I want to categorize it as bad, and I don't know where they're going with it, but I would categorize her choices of late and her impulsiveness, her very not thought out choices she's making this season, which is unlike her and uncharacteristic of the other seasons. I find them to be very dangerous because they are all done with, even if they're done with the right intentions, they are done with a certain ill-advised bravado that she can handle anything as long as she gets to see all the cards.
And yeah, with these dangerous choices, and something we've been sort of talking about for years now, was are Jimmy and Kim good for each other? Do you have different thoughts on that after the 5th season and seeing the choices those characters are making now and the impact they're having on each other?
Well, it was very rewarding for me that I have always whenever I'm trying to get into Kim's head and Kim's skin each season, knowing that is something that people ask when they're watching the show, and characters in the show, even, Chuck's character and other characters very silently judging, looking at us, have this question of, is Jimmy bad for Kim? That was always the thing. And whenever I got into Kim's head to try to play the part, I instantly was just seethed about that question. I just inherently thought she would loathe people thinking that she's somehow this corruptible essence who's not making her own choices in life. That being said, I enjoy that thematic question through the whole series, and there was that question in Breaking Bad as well. It's like, what are our intrinsic properties as people versus our extrinsic properties? Who are you if you'd never met anyone you'd ever met or had the experiences you've had? It's an impossible question, but a very interesting one. And I, at this point, think she is as influential on Jimmy in both negative and positive ways as he is on her. And I think we got to see more this season, and it was really fun to play, of the forces that are going on within her. And I find it very interesting to now, I used to ask myself the question, like, who would Jimmy have become if he never met Kim or if he never met Chuck? And I find it very interesting now in this season, and I think she's struggling with it. It's like, who is Kim if she never met Jimmy? In many regards, I think he has actually been great for her. And I think that his decisions about loyalty and giving her a place to take off her mask and be herself to some degree, his unconditional support of her having to let her guard down and let anyone in and let anyone ever help or be there for her, were all beneficial things, I think, to her humanity. But as far as who's leading who down a bad choice road, I think they I think they both have pulled the other one's hand along, and I think they both have caught each other.
Yeah, I've always felt that relationship and that dynamic, there's something very endearing about two people who sort of support and are there for each other in probably a world where those two characters haven't had a whole lot of advocates and a whole lot of people speaking up for them. What do you think about, let's quickly though talk about that big scene that you had at the end of the Bad Choice Road episode. The penultimate episode.
Yeah.
Episode 9, penultimate episode of the season. It was incredibly tense. I couldn't stay seated. What was that? I had no idea what was going to happen. What was that like for you to do that scene?
It's so much fun, and Tom Schnauz wrote it and directed that one. I've had so much fun this season, and the writers have been so great to me that I had to ask, which scene for a minute, because I was like, do you mean when they almost break up and then she instead proposes to him, or do you mean when she unleashes on an old man in the middle of the desert and is horrible? So confronting Lalo. Oh, also going to prison to talk to Lalo and telling him that I'm his wife. That was a lovely moment. Yes, confronting Lalo was huge, and it was so much fun. and I'm reading along, and I have such a blast with Tom. He's such a brilliant writer, Tom Schnauzer. He's also a very, very talented director that I have a lot of fun discussing the scenes and the character with. And he has such great love and respect for the Kim Wexler character that we can really deep dive about what's going on and what's leading up to this. But as soon as I saw that he additionally was going to have Mike have her in the crosshairs, and we were blocking it, and I realized that Tom wanted me to keep stepping into Mike's crosshairs of his sniper rifle, I was like, you are so gleefully effing with the audience. And he was like, yeah, it's pretty fun. But it was great. And Tony, getting to do a scene with Tony Dalton was great. Getting to do a scene where the power shift so drastically changes with between Jimmy and Kim was fun. And it was also challenging, which is blissful to me, to do a scene like that where I am virtually silent for the first half and then have to explosively come out of a cannon. So the whys and the wheres and the hows and the whens of coming at that have to come from the silent sort of intake before. And it's really fun when I get to play Kim's very observational scenes, because I think she's so astute. She's so great at reading people, not just Jimmy, and she collects information very quickly. I mean, I spent the first 2 minutes of the scene doing what I think any human would do, of just sitting there contemplating, could I jump out of this window? Could we get past him to the door? Where are the knives in our kitchen drawer? Could we call 911? No, we couldn't. Like, you know, you just have to go through the very real human safety aspects. And then, you know, she knows Jimmy has a secret. It involves a bullet hole in a mug that she's seen. She knows he is suffering from very traumatic PTSD from something. And given that he very recently found the ability to, and even the merit in telling her the truth, even when the truth is dark or not very positive, and now he's hiding something, she knows that it's something very bad and something very troubling to him. And as soon as she realizes that Lalo is there looking for some truth that Jimmy is clearly willing to, like, almost get a shot to not tell. Whatever it is he doesn't want to tell is bad enough that he's not giving it up right now, even in these extreme circumstances. And I think that for Kim, and I talked to Tom about this, that she does actually the same thing she does in the almost breakup turns to a marriage proposal scene. Kim does not sit in messy emotional experiences very well. The gender stereotypes are reversed there. Jimmy is very, like, emotional, heart on the sleeve, let's talk about our feelings. And I find that Kim, in those moments, even extreme duress moments, switches to analytical, pragmatic, legal. How do I argue out of this? I'm not, and I talked to Jennifer Bryan and I said, please, I need to be able to kick off my shoes. Like, I want to be even shorter than Tony when I walk up to him. I think it should be apparent that there is no other tool she has. And she has to do something. I mean, he's going to, in her mind, he's going to shoot and kill them if they don't do something. So there are no other choices. And she switches to this, how do I make this a legal debate? How do I make this business savvy? And I think she does read the situation very well, because in the end, yes, it's a very dangerous thing she's doing, but she is correct in her assessment of his business. Like, he does need to get his shit in order. Like, it is insane to send Saul Goodman to go get your money. Like, how did you think that was going to end? So that was it was a lot of fun to find that with Tom and to think about how much was planned and how much wasn't planned. And to my mind, she hoped she could just say 2 sentences and he'd leave. And then it was like, oh, that crap, he's still here. I guess I have to have 5 sentences. And like, no, still staring at Jimmy. Okay, I'll say 7 sentences. And it builds and builds and builds, you know. But we had a blast, and Tony's an incredible actor to play off of.
And I think, like, describing, like, that scene for Kim as one where she's silent, then explosive out of a cannon is sort of, in some ways, for just how I think about it, reflective of her character arc over the whole, like, series, in a sense. In season 1, she was quite a, silent character, not as, bold as she is now. And I think maybe towards the end of season 1 was the first scene where she really stood up for Jimmy and had a big sort of moment. And now, like, we see that is part of Kim's character. She will speak up and really, she's found her voice over the course of the past 5 years. What's it been like? How's her character developed over that arc of 5 seasons?
I think you're right that we've always seen that she uses silence as a position of power often, and is perfectly fine to just give everybody enough rope to hang themselves so you don't have to get your hands messy. And I like that about her. But when pushed into a corner, she very much speaks up for herself. And I love that is the counterpart, and it highlights, I guess, the fact that this character being silent often is not a position of weakness, because when she speaks, you realize, like, oh, you've been fully present and choosing not to speak this whole time for your own purposes. So I love that about her, but they were measured responses in the past, to my mind. And they were also not as emotional. And then when you saw in season 4, Breathe, and she's confronting Howard Hamlin about Chuck's estate, there is a loss of control that I calibrated with Michelle McLaren, and Tom Schnauz wrote that one, when she's saying, do you really think it's fair to have Jimmy go through this and go dig through the rubble looking for, memories? We talked about the calibration of what does it look like for Kim to lose her cool, which is what the script had in it. I think it's less losing your cool than a person who is much more prone to emotional outbursts. And I don't think she likes to be in professional settings. It's something, I think Kim feels naked when she shows emotion. And I think she wants to speak up for herself and be powerful, but to never have someone be able to discount it as emotional. And I think a lot of people, probably a lot of women, but men as well, understand that, of the fact that, like, you're not taken as seriously. And we are talking about 2000, and she's a female in an practically all male legal world. I think she's very careful of that. And I also, my own mind and my own backstory that I've been jigsaw puzzling together over 6 years, I feel there's things in her backstory, and even when we saw the alcoholic mother, that also points towards why she needs to remain cool-headed and a voice of reason and of reserve and extreme commitment to this is happening and this is the right way to do stuff. And what we saw in season 5, I felt, was a lack of calibration, losing a little bit of that control over when to be emotional, even going to Lalo when he's still imprisoned. And I talked to Vince Gilligan, who directed that one, and Gordon Smith wrote it. And I said, usually when we see Kim very upset and the audience is sort of her only confidant and knows that something is rattling her, once she gets into the professional setting, it's Stonewall. It's back to buttoned up suit, perfect curled ponytail, and only the audience knows that she's off her game. But this was an instance where I thought, like, I think we're getting to a place where she can't even be on her game. I mean, she hasn't slept at all. She honestly thinks Jimmy is about to die somewhere in the desert or is dead and would like to find the body soon. And a lot of people were like, wow, why would Kim, not a lot of people, but some fans were saying, why would she even make the choice to go there? There is no other choice. That's why. There is no other choice. She can't call the police about what's going on. So a long way to answer your question. It has been very fun for me to know that has always been a part of Kim, to speak up for herself and try, very solution oriented, great confidence in power and resolution in what she decides. But it has become more emotional and more impulsive to me. Yeah. And it's working out to her benefit sometimes, but I think we all sense, and she's smart enough to sense, that it's getting quite dangerous, the choices she's making. So that's been a lot of fun to track.
Yeah. Another big moment, as you've talked about already, was the marriage to Jimmy and the wedding. Everyone loves a TV wedding. How did you feel But this was a somewhat different one. Quickly, how did you find that that decision and that direction for those characters?
Actually playing the wedding and how we played it, or the proposal episode prior? Yeah, that was fun. Melissa, it was great. The proposal was fun. That was a very difficult, challenging scene. Talk about a turn. It's a turn in 1 second. For me, that's a 3-part scene. The first part is doing everything you can not to have the argument. And I think we've all been there, where if I see your stupid face, I'm going to punch you and I'm going to leave you. So I really hope you're not even home when I get home tonight. Because I think Kim thinks if she sleeps on it, she might have some solution. She might, be able to figure this out a little more, but she's just seething and so beyond feeling betrayed at this point. And the fact that Jimmy is there and seems to be celebratory and frivolous and trivial, it is mind-blowing to her and makes her feel so alone, so utterly alone, in the same way that she felt alone in the foyer when he told her that he was just scamming the bar when he was trying to get reinstated, and she also had a tear in her eye, and he was making fun of somebody on the panel that had a tear in his eye. She's just so alone, betrayed, yeah, but also just like on an island. Who's the person that I thought was the only person who knew me, because I don't know them. And so feeling that far away, he keeps poking at her. And I understood Bob's attack on the other side of the scene as we rehearsed it, because we've all been there too, where you're just like, you super fucked up. So is there a way that you could decrease the charges? Like, is there a way that you could somehow make your partner feel that this wasn't as bad as they think? And it was lovely, and there's such an honest, beautiful moment in the middle of it when she says, I know you're lying. We know you're lying. At this point, I lie. We both lie. That's who we are. But we don't lie to each other. So can you look at me and lie to me in my face? And he can't. And to me, it felt like that's because there is something real there. She's not a complete idiot in thinking there's anything to save here. And so then you're in the argument section of the scene, and then the last section is very tiny, but it's this shift, this very dangerous compartmentalizing that she does. I can't sit with the fact that there's no right and wrong answer to this equation. She just can't. I have to fix it, and I have to make it something that can be reasoned out, thought out, and comes up with the marriage, because at least then he wouldn't lie to her. And again, this is changed, because I don't know if you remember back in the Squat Cobbler episode, back then she was telling him, okay, do what you need to do. By the way, here's a little warning. If you fabricate evidence, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. But you do you, but I just need to not hear about it. Let's keep that all separate if I never have to hear about it. And now we're in a place where she's like, I need to hear every single thing you're doing. In order to not feel betrayed, in order to be a part of this, in order to be in this relationship. And that is, you could say that's blind love, but it's also ego. I really think she's at this place where she's like, as long as I know everybody's hand, I will win every poker game. And that is crazy dangerous. And then, and it was a beautiful scene, and it was a difficult scene just because it's, we shift in a moment, not just the lines, but however Jimmy throws out a tone of his line and I throw my tone back. That's a very quick, intense volleyball game when you have to alter your next line reading. I mean, any actor knows that that's what you do. You have to listen and respond, not just do the response you were planning. But Bob and I did it 30 times, and each time was slightly different. And so they chose to, Michael Morris, along with Marshall Adams, our DP, made a choice to do dueling coverage. So we had 2 cameras on us the whole time to be able to catch all the overlaps and the very tiny nuances that were flying fast and furious. And that was cool. That was fun. It's hard. It's hard not to get in the other person's light. It's hard not to block them because you're not aware of where the second camera is all the time. But in the end, I think they made really beautiful choices by doing that. And then the wedding, Melissa Bernstein, did, and directed. And that was her directorial debut. And I had so much fun getting to do the sort of that they do so well, that kind of odd comedic stuff they do threaded in the drama. They're so sharp and deft at switching tones, sometimes within a scene, definitely within an episode, and even genres, it feels like sometimes. And so just playing that very wry humor of dealing with this like they're going to court and are about to do a contract. And her, you know, the information that comes out is really fun too. When you hear the clerical person, I forget the name of that person, that job, asking for evidence of the dissolution of his other 2 marriages, and you realize like, oh, those are the other 2 divorces he talks about in Breaking Bad. Like that was fun because I'm a Breaking Bad fan too. And then letting those emotions sneak up on us and making sure that it never got overly sentimental, because that's not the show we're doing. But it was nice to know that these characters, that you've gotten to know them long enough, and Bob and I have threaded together so many moments and scenes that are not hinging on lovey gooey eyes at each other and all that stuff, that it could afford it for just a second when they have to say their vows. And that was just a nice feeling to go like, oh wow, we've been living with these people for a long time.
Yeah. So just to wrap up, Ray, I've got a few just like lightning round questions, if you don't mind giving me just some quick answers on these. First one is, if you were a marriage counselor and you had to give some advice to Kim and Jimmy, what would you give them? What would you tell them?
What? Well, stay away from the cartel, but that's not really normal marriage advice. But I think, like, yeah, if they were in my office, I'd be like, I think you guys might make it if you stay away from the cartel.
Stay away from the cartel. What would be your prediction? Do you know how the series ends? Like, the series is one season. You don't know?
No, not at all. We get our scripts like, you get them one at a time, and then the next one comes while you're filming that one. But no, I never know the whole end of the season. And the writers' room, they are convened via Google Snap, Quad Chat, Zoom, Goggled Google, one of those video conference things. But they're not at the finale yet either. They're not there.
Yeah, and you don't obviously I won't ask you any thoughts if the answer is yes. Do you know how Kim's story ends?
Not a clue. Not a clue.
Oh, good. I like that. What percentage would you give to her surviving Better Call Saul?
Mentally or physically?
Physically. Will she have a heartbeat by the end of the series?
I'm betting on yes, and that's not just the actor desperately not wanting to get out of the sandbox, because I don't, but it's also. But I really don't know. I know that if they think that is the best resolution to this, they'll do it. As much as they love and respect me, they'll do it. I know it. But I don't know. There's something that feels like, sadly, when we lost Chuck, I was kind of like, well, they can't just pick off every single person that's not in Breaking Bad. That's a little weird, right? But who knows? My money is on a more tragic devolving of her than death.
Yeah. There are things so much worse than death. So okay, so that's good. Maybe not good to know. You'll be getting out of the sandbox regardless, I guess. Like, you'll be whatever happens with Kim.
I mean, like, I feel like even if it was some happy ending where we saw them again in the future, I just feel like who Kim has become, or what she's done to suppress herself, or what she's compartmentalized herself into, there's a sadness to that story now that I think will always be there.
Yeah. And last question, you've been working with Bob Odenkirk for 5 years now, or probably longer years, but 5 seasons of the show. Right. What's something you learnt about him this year that was...
This year?
Yeah, or this season, this overshooting season 5.
Love of animals has no limits. he brought a stray home from the desert that was pregnant, and I ended up having to be the doula because he left for one weekend, and that's the weekend the dog had babies all over our porch, and I had to learn how to do that via FaceTime with this wonderful woman Jan on our crew who has done it before. Yeah, he has a great love of animals. And what else? His commitment. He was preparing for a film that required a very specific kind of physical training. His commitment is endless. His commitment to whatever he's doing, and he was doing that at the same time, and he was memorizing page after page after page of our stuff, and always willing to run lines. Bob and Patrick Fabian and I live in a house that Bob and his amazing wife Naomi bought in Albuquerque. We rent it while we're there, and you can't imagine his level of commitment to his work. I know people think he's a great improver, and he is, but first of all, he's not improving on our show. I think he said there's 2 times total in 5 seasons. Wow. And they are isolated events where he was asked to add some jokes. One of them was the carnival scene when he's like, people are coming in and out and he's selling phones, and the other one was in the senior citizen home when he was doing bingo. But I know he's a great improver, but and he used to make these jokes, and I hope he doesn't make them anymore, about, oh, well, I'm not a real drama actor, because I came from sketch and all this stuff. His artistry and his commitment to finding 400 different ways to do a scene, and then being willing to completely change it depending on how I'm playing my half, or Patrick Fabian is playing his half, or Tony Dalton, or Michael Mando, or Mike Ehrmantraut, Giancarlo. He's just so committed to upping his game when I don't think there's any more to up every single day. It's really inspiring.
Yeah. Well, it's fantastic. And thank you so much for chatting with us today, Ray. It's always a pleasure. And boy, the response to Kim this season's been fantastic, hasn't it?
Yeah. It's been nice.
Yeah. The response to every season's been quite good, but I've noticed particularly there's a lot of notices and stuff this year. So
yeah, I mean, people are just I'm thrilled with how people have embraced the character, and then what the writers and directors had me do this season was so great and really challenging in the best way for an actor, and to have it received well is lovely.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's received well by the Emmy voters. All the best of luck for the Emmy Awards and other awards that are down the pipeline, and for the final season of the show. As always, Ray, it's a pleasure to talk to you.
You too, Matt. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.